Hello everyone, Cindy here with Monarch Mom DIY. Thank you so much for joining me today on my channel where I love to bring you my best tips and tools to inspire you to create beautiful home decor on a budget. Today I am back with 4 easy, mostly Dollar Tree, budget-friendly fall decor DIYs. So with all that being said, let's get crafting. Our first DIY for today is a fall pumpkins centerpiece. I'm using 2 of these 3D pumpkins. I'm going to use 2 of these square palettes. I'm not going to use the paint stick pieces, but I am going to use this gorgeous napkin from Dollar Tree. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove the raffia bows from our 2 pumpkins. I'm going to hold on to those because I am going to add them back in at the end of the project. Next, I'm going to take Waverly chalk paint in the color Agave, and I'm going to do this around the 3 raised sections on the stem and all around. I will eventually paint the backs with this color as well. Next, I'm going to take this antique wax and I'm going to use it with a baby wipe on the 2 mini palettes. Like I said, you see some paint stick pieces there. I'm not going to end up using those in the project. I will show you what I end up using instead when we get to that step. So just trying to cover as much of these mini palettes as I can with the antique wax. And here, like I mentioned, I'm going to use that same agave chalk paint on the back of my pumpkins as well. Next, taking this Dollar Tree fall napkin, I'm going to cut it in half, and then when I get to it, I'm going to take just the top layer off. Now, when I went to put this on, my idea was I was going to do the Mod Podge and then let it dry. So that's what I'm doing here is I'm just applying Mod Podge as much as I can to the raised areas, and then I was going to let it dry and then do the ironing method. However, once this dried and I went to put the napkin on, I didn't like that it was unfinished, so I went back and then painted it with white. So here's what I mean. I came back in with the napkin and you could see some of the paint that was up on the raised areas. So even though I'd already Mod Podged it, I did go ahead and painted over it with my, I believe I used plaster chalk paint. So I'm going to do that on both of my pumpkins, and then we'll come back after the paint is dry and do the Mod Podge again. Now coming back to those 2 mini palettes, I'm just using some wood glue and I'm gluing them together end to end. This is going to be the base for our little centerpiece. And like I said, I'm not going to use those paint stick pieces. All right, now that our Mod Podge is dry again, I'm taking half of the napkin, placing it over the dried Mod Podge, just kind of pressing it down. And I'm going to take some parchment paper and a warm iron, and I'm going to go over the napkin. And this is going to reactivate the Mod Podge and be a much cleaner, neater way to Mod Podging a napkin onto the surface. Again, remember, I did peel any backing layers from the napkin, so it's just the top layer. Then once that was dry, I just took a little piece of sandpaper and I'm very gently going around the edges, kind of pulling it a little tight, and this is going to trim the extra napkin off the sides of each of the raised areas. I did take my time and used I think I used a 240 on this, so it was pretty fine and it wasn't going to shred up the napkin too much, but it's going to make nice clean edges on those 3 raised areas of our pumpkins. And here's what it looks like, nice and clean. Now we'll do the second one. Once my napkins were done, I did Mod Podge on the backs of my pumpkins. And then once this is dry, we will flip it over and do another layer of Mod Podge over our napkins. So here you can see I'm doing Mod Podge kind of gently over the napkin just so it doesn't shred. And then I am going to go ahead and go in all of the spaces on the background that have the agave chalk paint, just so we have a nice uniform finish on the front and the back of each of our pumpkins. Once all that's dry, I'm going to take some hot glue and I'm going to start some jute twine on the back of our pumpkin. I'm going to wrap this around to cover up the stem and also to cover up that hole. This works pretty well. Once I get to the top, I do put some more hot glue. This will keep our jute twine from sliding off the top of the stem there and also some on the back. Then just continue wrapping it until it looks good to you. Trim it off and glue it again on the back. I'm going to do this to both of my pumpkins. Now that our base there of the 2 pallets is dry, I'm going to put 3 dots of wood glue, fill in between with some hot glue, and I'm going to glue one of my pumpkins to each long side of the pallets there, just holding them in the middle. And then I will reinforce with hot glue also on the inside between the pallets and the pumpkin. So I'm going to use a couple pieces of one of these rectangular wood planks from Dollar Tree or Walmart. I measured the space between the 2 pumpkins and I just cut 2 pieces that I'm going to glue in on the sides, but I wanted them to match the rest of the project, so I am painting them with the antique wax. Next, I'm going to take those raffia bows and I'm going to re-glue them where they were, kind of at the top of the middle raised section on either of my pumpkins. I did kind of untie them and retie them just to make them a little neater. And now using hot glue on 3 sides, the bottom and the 2 sides of my rectangular piece, I'm going to glue it in there on the inside of that first big section, sorry about the head, and then glue it to the backs of each of my pumpkins. And we'll do the same thing with the second rectangular piece. I'm wanting this to be side pieces so that I can put some floral foam in here to be able to poke in some florals and just make it look nice so that you can't see the floral foam. So now that our little pumpkin centerpiece is done, I'm going to take a couple pieces of floral foam. One of them I am going to have to cut a little bit to get it to fit inside. And I'm not covering these up with anything. You definitely could do that, cover up with some moss. But I'm just going to add some fall florals from Dollar Tree in here. This would look really cute. I wanted to make it two-sided so that it would look really nice on a table as a centerpiece. And here's what it looks like, our finished little pumpkin centerpiece. You could put just leaves in it, whatever florals you want. I just pulled out some of my fall florals and I love this. I think it's really cute and hope you guys will give it a try. If you're stopping by my channel for the first time today, welcome. I'm so glad that you found me. I sure hope you like what you see and you'll consider sticking around by hitting that subscribe button. I also do have almost 400 videos here on my channel that I've recorded and uploaded over the last 4.5 years. If you're one of my returning viewers or subscribers, thank you so much for your continued support of my channel. For today's second DIY, we're going to take a couple recycled cans with lids and we're going to turn them into some cute fall decor using a couple more napkins, some lamb's ear, a couple wood candle cups. And the first thing I'm going to do is one of my cans and lids I'm going to paint with plaster Waverly chalk paint. The other one I'm going to use celery. So this is one of the napkins I'm going to use. I'm going to use this pumpkin and flower image on the plaster covered can. And I am going to fussy cut this, but because my can is the same as the base color of the napkin, I can leave a little bit of that off-white going around. So once I get that fussy cut out, I will separate any extra layers of the napkin. So all I have is the top layer that has the image on it. Now for this leaf napkin, which I believe is also from Dollar Tree, I'm just going to cut a piece and this is going to just wrap around. I'm not going to be cutting out individual leaves, but I do still need to separate any extra layers from the napkin. So now with our celery can, I'm just applying some Mod Podge. I'm going to brush it on as evenly as I can in a little section. And then I will start applying the leaf napkin, lining it up on, I believe, the top edge and just pressing it down very gently so that the Mod Podge grabs good hold of it. Once I got to the end that I had started with, I did just gently kind of cut it or tear it with my little knife here to get a nice edge where they were just touching each other and not overlapping. You could totally just let it keep going and overlap the other end if you want, but I figured this will be the back of the can. Now coming to the off-white can, we're just going to put enough Mod Podge on to be a base for the image that we cut out and press it down gently as well. Then I'm going to go over the edges gently to make sure they're down, and then gently over the entire image to make sure it's nice and sealed to our can. Once our leaf napkin is completely dry, you can see I'm going to take my little sander in a downward motion around that bottom edge of the can, and this is going to make a nice clean edge without us having to try to cut off the excess of the napkin. It cleans it up really nice, and then I'm going to do Mod Podge over this napkin as well. Now there's a bunch of different things you can use for pumpkin stems. I happen to have these two wooden little candle cups. So I'm going to paint these with my truffle brown chalk paint. Other ideas, I've seen actual sticks. I've seen corks. Just use something that you have on hand. You could even use tumbling tower blocks if you wanted to. But I'm just going to paint these brown and then we'll glue them onto the lids of our cans. Speaking of our lids, I am going to seal in the paint with Mod Podge before we get them all decorated, just using a nice good layer and letting that dry. So here I'm just doing some hot glue and I'm going to glue this right down to the center of the can lid, and then we'll decorate a little bit around it as well. So now that our stem is down, I'm going to put some hot glue kind of around the stem on the can lid, and I'm going to go around it with some moss from Dollar Tree. I don't know what kind of moss this was, but it was really dry, but it seemed to work okay. You can use Spanish moss or whatever kind you like, just to add some decoration to the top of your can. And for leaves, I decided to just use some lamb's ear that I had. So definitely use whatever leaves you have. I'm just sticking those on, and then if I need to cover up with a little more moss, you can go ahead and do that. I'm going to do 3 leaves and then a single leaf on either side of our can lids. I wanted to add just a little bit more decoration to my cans, so I'm taking this thick jute twine from Walmart, and I am going to do one line of this around both the base of the can and the top of the can, and then I'm also going to do a little bit around the outer edge of the lid. And here's what our 2 recycled cans look like. I think they're super cute. You could even put candy in them or just use them for decoration, but I love finding new ways to use trash and turn it into something beautiful. For a complete list of all the tools and supplies I've used in today's projects, please click the down arrow next to the title of this video. That will open up the description box where you will find links to my Magnolia Design Co. website, my Amazon storefront, and a complete list for each of these projects of the tools and supplies I used. For DIY number 3, we're going to make this shiplap looking pumpkin fall sign using this pumpkin from Dollar Tree, some scrapbook paper, and then I am going to end up mounting this on a square wooden sign. So first, taking off the hanger, I'm going to trace around each of the 5 sections of this pumpkin with a different scrapbook paper and then Mod Podge them on. I love this. I think it looks super cute and is going to make a really nice decor. So now that I have all my pieces traced and cut out, I'm going to Mod Podge the middle one and then to the 2 end ones and let those dry, and then I'll Mod Podge on the 2nd and 4th ones. Once these 3 pieces were dry, I'm taking my sander and I'm going around the outer edges as well as in the little spaces to clean up any extra paper before I Mod Podge on the other 2 pieces. Now that everything is all cleaned up, I am going to do another layer of Mod Podge over the top of our scrapbook paper just to make sure it stays down and doesn't peel off. So like I said, I decided to mount this on a sign. So I'm using one of these square signs from Hobby Lobby. I taped off the center and I am painting it with moss, going with the color scheme of the papers that I chose for the pumpkin. So I'm going to paint this with one good layer of Moss Waverly chalk paint. Then when it's dry, I will tape off the center and I will go around the outside of the frame with antique wax. to add a little more decorative touch and cover up the stem, I'm going to do the same thing I did with my first DIY and wrap the stem of the pumpkin with jute twine. I found some of these wood words from Hobby Lobby in my stash, so I'm putting a little bit of hot glue on the back of this wood sign that says grateful. I am just going to keep it the natural wood color and glue it to the bottom right of our pumpkin. I think this is really cute. Of course, you do not have to add words to this project, but I just wanted to. Then I'm going to glue this to the inside of my square frame. And the last thing I'm going to do, of course, is also optional. I'm going to take my vintage photo antiquing or distressing ink, and I'm just going to go around the outside edges a little bit on the wood word and just a tiny bit in the middle of each section of my pumpkin. If you're on Facebook, I would love it if you would follow me on my Monarch Mom DIY Facebook page. I do go live there multiple times during the week doing different videos and projects than what I'm showing here on YouTube. And DIY number 4 is super cute and easy. I'm taking one of these Dollar Tree crates, some mini letter stickers, and a piece of scrapbook paper. We're going to make a faux mini book stack using the crate. So I've done this before, thought it would be fun to do a different version. So on the front, which is going to be the book spine, I'm going to paint the top section with agave, the bottom section with pumpkin, and then I'm going to do the middle section with white as well as the sides and the back, so it's like the pages of the book. Next, we're going to cut a piece of the scrapbook paper at 3 inches by 5.5 inches. I'm trying to get that super cute truck on there, but that is the size of the top, or actually the bottom of the crate. That's going to be the top of our book stack. Once we have that trimmed to size, we will Mod Podge it onto the top of our book stack. And then I'm going to use my mini sticker letters to write the words farm, fresh, pumpkins on our 3 different books of our book stack. And now that we have the stickers on, we're going to gently put Mod Podge over them to make sure they don't peel off of our book stack. We'll smooth that out, and then we will also do Mod Podge over the scrapbook paper on top of the book stack. Using some black and white gingham check ribbon from Dollar Tree, I'm going to make a simple bow, and then we're going to wrap our book stack with some plain burlap ribbon and some more of this black and white checked. Once we have the book stack wrapped, we're going to add that little cute bow to the top. And then for an extra little decorative piece, I have one tiny little sunflower that we'll add on top of the bow as well. Thanks again so much for joining me today. Please let me know in the comments which of these projects was your favorite, which one you think you most might recreate, and we'll see you next time. Take care.